So I've put together this presentation at Jyoti's request on the religions of, teaching about the religions of India. Most of my teaching career has actually not been about teaching the religions of India. I don't say that so that I'll undermine your confidence in me, but to say that I'm happy to talk about any aspect of teaching about India. Most of my teaching has been cultural studies and history, and I decided to highlight caste. And the reason why I want to do that is I think it intersects with a lot of what I've heard so far this morning, and the relationship between caste and religion is very hard to access through most writing, right? Because most people who write about India will write about caste or they will write about religion, but they don't write about the two together, but the two are deeply intertwined. So India is often described as an experiment with democracy. It's a very common term. For many people who say it, it's a kind of a pejorative term, right? That India doesn't do democracy well. And at the very beginning of Indian democracy in 1947, most people predicted it would totally fall apart and it would never survive. Some religions that exist nowhere else exist in India alone. Parsis being the most significant. So the Zoroastrians, former religion of Persia. So the religions that originate in India, obviously the big one is Hinduism. I say Hinduisms here because Hinduism, as any of you who teach it know, it is not actually a thing, right? It's just a catch-all term that you use to hold the place of a whole group of practices and beliefs and texts and histories that are sometimes in conflict and sometimes align and sometimes fall away. Then, of course, there's Buddhism around 6th century BC onwards. Now, this is the point when you start to have religions with founders. Jainism begins around the same time as Buddhism. They emerge around the same time. And then it's not until the 15th century that we have Sikhism. Sikhism is sometimes described as a blending of Islam and Hinduism. It's really a unique religion, not a blending of things from my point of view. So when discussing caste, caste is a kind of complicated thing to discuss because the word itself really doesn't indicate much. Pyramid structure, the pyramid getting larger with a larger population of people under that category. Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, and then a group that are called untouchable, different names for them. And I've given you a sort of an English translation of them here. Jati literally means birth. It's cognate with genus. It's where you come from, where you're born. That's what Jati means. So it means one's origin. Often it also means one's last name. So untouchability is, let me just zoom through this because as I said, you'll have this. It's hinted at in the Vedas. I already described it a little bit. It's based on religious practice and social economic practices. So purity associated with labor. There are certain jobs in a village that had to be done, and they had to do it. Untouchability is not a Varna status, but it has many jatis associated with it. So earlier I said that the untouchables are the people who are just excised from the Varna situation entirely. It's like, why would you include animals in the Varna system? To wrap up, let me just say, the relationship between caste and religion, Hinduism didn't invent caste. Caste is not a Hindu thing. This is often an anxiety for Hindu students. When I teach about caste, they think that I'm blaming it on them. And Gandhi, it's important to note, supported caste in terms of Varna, but challenged untouchability. But he thought that the Varna system was a good idea. Right? He thought the idea that everybody had a role in society, and some people clean toilets. He famously made his wife clean toilets, right? So she'd know what that was like. But some people have to clean toilets, and some people get to make decisions of politics, and that's just the way it is. And that if a system can respect, if everyone can respect the toilet cleaner as much as the guy who's in the Mercedes making the political decisions, then this was Gandhi. Well, Gandhi wouldn't have wanted you in a Mercedes because Gandhi was opposed to modernity, and he was opposed to urban life. He was opposed to electricity. He thought having electricity in villages would ruin India.